In this video, I'm going to teach you how to create a swatch chart for your markers. Now, it's really important to use this as an opportunity, not just to see the colors of the markers that you have, but to practice all of the different techniques of applying color with the two tips of the marker, which is a thick one and a thin one. So I'm going to begin by just kind of talking through the techniques and on the left side of how we're going to apply the color, and then we're going to talk about the texture that's applied on this right column. But what I want to draw your attention to first is how I set up my sheet. Now I have a printout with all the names of the markers in my set, and you can see here there's a two letters, PM, and then a hyphen, and then a number that relate to each of the markers. And then they each have their own names. So all of these match up. So this one I have here is PM8 Rose. And so I'm going to use that marker for right here. Now, the other thing that I want to keep in mind is that I'm going to apply the flat color here to all of these different columns, and then it's at this bottom row and far right column that things are going to start to get interesting. But for right now, focus on the application of color for these 24 cells right here. Now, we're going to explore the application of color in two different ways. The first is, in these first two rows, we're going to explore stippling, so large stippling and small stippling. We're going to practice that across here. Here, for these two rows, we're going to do large and small cross hatching across here. And then for this row, these two rows, we're going to focus on large and small scumbling, and I'll show you that technique in a minute. And then, as I said, we're going to do some blending here and some application of texture here. So I've started this a little bit already, but all I just wanted to show you is just my basic technique. You can see here that in this cell up here, it's PM16 orange, and that's this marker. And so in order to create my large stipples, I just took the large chisel end of my pen or my marker, and I just did them. I took my time nice and slow, and I'm not going really hard. I'm not pushing down really hard, and I'm not lifting up really hard. I'm just really soft and gently because I don't want to compromise the tip of that marker. So that's how I did the large stipple. And I'm going to do that for all of the colors in this row. So for crimson red, poppy red, and canary yellow, same technique, large chisel tip doing stipples. Now for this row, it's going to be the small stipples. And so for that, I'm going to use the small end of my marker. And this is going to take some time, but not as much time as you think it's going to do. And so all I'm doing here is just filling in nice and light, soft tapping to fill in this. And as I said, we're going to do that for all the colors of this row. For these two, as I said, it's going to be cross hatching. And so we're going to do large cross hatching on the top. And so my first color here is violet blue. And so you can see here, I've got my violet blue. I'm using my large chisel tip. And this is how you do a cross hatch, a large scale cross hatch. So I'm pushing down, and I'm doing parallel strokes, nice and controlled. And then I'm coming across this way. And what you're going to notice is that as you overlap the marker, it gets darker, and then you're going to end up having some pooling of ink on whichever side you end on. And we're going to use that pooling later to create some value contrast. So we're going to do that all the way across this row. Now for this row, it's going to be crosshatch, but with a fine tip. And so all I did was I used the fine tip, and this, you just go really slow. Nice straight lines. Being careful to stop and start at the top and bottom. You can see here I've outlined all my boxes. I used a micron here. This is a 0.30 millimeter, but a Sharpie, one of these would work just as well too. And so then once again, my cross hatching, I'm going to come across like this. And it's going to take practice to get better and to get neat. But look, you can see how as you cross over it, it gets a little bit darker. So we're going to use that technique for this row here. Now for the scumbling, large scumble across this row, small scumble across this row. So the scumbling is fun. It's just squiggles like this. Controlled, but real small overlapping circles. And I'm trying to get as close to the edge as possible without going over it. And that's also part of this exercise, is to see kind of how you have to control the marker to get close, but not too close. Okay, small scumble. It's the same thing here. Now you have to be careful when you're doing a scumble to make sure that it doesn't really read as just rows and rows of scumbles. And so I'm kind of doing it in rows to make sure that I cover everything and to save fatigue on my arm, but then I'm kind of going over top of it to just kind of fill in and give some randomness, controlled randomness to it. Okay, and that's how you're going to apply the color for all of these 24 cells.